What if the wolf had struck first? Tywin Lannister's head dropped into the dust before the Red Keep. His golden armor clattered as his body slumped lifeless beside it. The crowd didn't cheer. They didn't scream. They only stared, stunned, into silence. Westeros had just changed forever. Ned Stark didn't flinch. His hand still gripped the sword, ice, with the same stillness he had always held in Winterfell. Beside him, Robb stood tall, younger than his years, but already weathered. His face showed no joy, no rage, just resolve. Tywin had been dragged from Casterly Rock under charges of treason. Ned had found the letters, the orders, the bribes. Gold flowed like poison from Lannister hands, to assassins, to mercenaries, to those who would see Robert dead long before the wine touched his lips. And when Robert Baratheon died from that boar, it was already too late. This time Ned hadn't hesitated. Okay, pause. Did anyone else just get chills? Because what happens next? It's absolutely wild. And if you think the Lannisters were just going to roll over after this, oh, you have no idea. Because the moment Tywin's head fell, the realm broke in half. Cersei screamed. Not like a queen. Not like a mother. Like a wounded animal. She lunged toward the platform, but Ser Barristan held her back. Her face twisted into something inhuman. Joffrey stood frozen, mouth slightly open, trying to understand the world without his grandfather pulling the strings. How dare you, he finally spat. He was the hand. He was the protector of the realm. Ned turned to him slowly, the blood still wet on ice. He was a traitor, and traitors die. Whoa, wait. Ned just spoke like Tywin used to. Cold final. This is a different Stark now. A Ned who saw the cost of mercy and chose steel instead. Robb didn't say anything. He didn't need to. His eyes scanned the nobles, noting every glance, every twitch of fear, every lord who looked away. This wasn't just an execution. It was a declaration of war, and war answered. Back in the Westerlands, Kevan Lannister seized control of Casterly Rock. He called the banners, swore vengeance, and crowned Joffrey not just king of the Seven Kingdoms, but of fire and wrath. The gold mines poured wealth into blades, ships, spies. In the south, Renly laughed. Let the lions and wolves kill each other, he told Loras. I'll take the crown when they're both dead. But in the north? Oh, they howled. Stark blood never forgets, the old lords whispered. They sent their sons, their steel, their honor. For the first time in centuries, the north rode south, not to bend the knee but to hold the blade. You feel that? That's the weight of history twisting. Because now there's no balance left. The lion's head is cut off. And wolves? Wolves bite when cornered. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Cersei plotted, You've doomed yourself, Stark, she hissed behind closed doors. You've turned Joffrey into wildfire. But Ned didn't answer. He had seen what mercy got him last time. He had seen what trust meant to a Lannister. Instead, he looked to Robb and said, You will lead the North one day. You must be hard, but not hollow. Robb nodded. And if I must kill to protect our blood, I'll do it. This isn't about revenge, Ned said. Robb met his gaze. Then it's about justice. Real justice. That line right there? That's when Robb stopped being a boy. That's the moment he stepped into his father's shadow. And maybe even beyond it. But here's where it gets even crazier. The Riverlands, caught between the North and the Westerlands, began to fracture. House Frey, always opportunistic, sent envoys to both sides. Whoever offers more, Walder said, gets the bridge. Littlefinger watched it all with a glint in his eye. When wolves and lions bleed, he said, rats feast. Varys, on the other hand, vanished. With Tywin gone, the Lannisters were unanchored. Joffrey's cruelty sharpened. He demanded executions, tortures, purges. He called for Sansa's head when she cried in court. Ned refused. Not again. He sent Sansa and Arya back north under heavy guard, sealing Winterfell as a fortress. Jon Snow was recalled from the wall, not to break vows, but to stand as a sword when war inevitably came. And it did, because Kevan's army wasn't just marching. It was burning. Lannisport's fleet sailed to block the narrow sea. Gold-cloaked soldiers swarmed the Stormlands, trying to cut off Renly before he could rise. And in the east, Daenerys Targaryen heard whispers. A wolf beheaded a lion, Ser Jorah said. Westeros is bleeding. Daenerys touched the egg in her palm, still unhatched. Then perhaps it's time a dragon flew home. Wait, what? Are you seeing how fast this spirals? One head cut off, and the whole Seven Kingdoms collapsed like dominoes. Back in King's Landing, Ned held court like a warrior king. No more tournaments. No more gold cloaks bought with bribes. He had Sir Barristan. He had the Northern Guard. He had truth. But truth isn't always enough. The High Septon began to question the bloody justice of the North. The small folk whispered about the coldness of the Wolf King. Some called him Warden, some called him Butcher and Cersei. She poisoned every ear she could find. He murdered a noble lord, she said. Today it's Tywin, tomorrow it's you. Robb saw it all, felt it like splinters in his skin. They hate us, he said one night. Even when we're right. They hate what they fear, Ned answered. And they were right to fear, because across the sea a dragon stirred. Across the sea a dragon stirred. Blood ran down the steps of the Great Sept, not from war, not from battle, from Joffrey's latest decree. A baker, accused of insulting the crown by refusing to bake lion-shaped pastries, had his hands removed in the square. His daughter screamed until her throat bled. The crowd watched in terrified silence. Joffrey stood atop the platform, smiling. "This is the price of defiance," he said. "And I'm feeling generous." Cersei watched from the shadows, no longer trying to temper him. She knew her son couldn't be controlled. Tywin had kept him in check through fear. Ned tried through order. But both were gone now. One dead, the other distant. "You're turning the city against us," she warned him later, voice low. He laughed. "Then we'll burn the city and rule the ashes." Meanwhile, Ned Stark sat in the solar with Robb, reading a letter that chilled his blood colder than the wall ever could. "The Westerlands march," Ned said. 30,000 strong. Kevin leads them. "And the crown," Robb asked, "supports them. The small council is fractured. Renly has vanished. Stannis prepares ships on Dragonstone. The realm is splintering." Robb stood, jaw clenched. "Then we ride home. Call our banners," but Ned shook his head. "We can't. If we abandon the capital, Joffrey wins. Cersei wins. Tywin's death means nothing." Robb stared at his father, not with the eyes of a son, but of a commander. "So what do we do?" And here's where things twist again. Because while wolves and lions tear each other apart, snakes slither forward. Littlefinger offered his counsel. "Marry Sansa to a fray, secure the Riverlands." "She's a child," Ned replied coldly. Littlefinger smiled. "So was Catelyn once, and somewhere far away Arya Stark trained with a blade. Not in a palace, not with honor. In a cellar, in filth, with men who whispered the names of the dead like prayers. But let's stay with Robb, because this is where things get bloody. He took a contingent of Northmen, not thousands, just enough, and rode south into the Riverlands. His target, a Lannister supply caravan heading for Harrenhal. At the Trident, the wolves struck. Flames lit the night. Steel clashed. Robb Stark, the young wolf, earned his name not through diplomacy, but blood. He personally unseated Ser Adam Marbrand and took his sword. Word spread faster than wildfire. The Starks are coming. But war doesn't build unity, it reveals cracks. In Winterfell, Lady Lysa refused to send aid. "Let the wolves and lions devour each other," she said, echoing Renly's words. "The Eyrie will not bleed for the Starks." "Even in the north," whispers rose. "He's dragging our sons into southern wars. He acts more king than Ned. He smells more like a lion than a wolf." And then Theon Greyjoy returned. Robb embraced him like a brother. But Maester Luwin saw it in Theon's eyes, a storm. "The boy you knew is gone," he warned Robb. Still, Robb welcomed him, gave him a seat at council. Let him see maps, plans, mistake. Now here's the thing. Ned had always believed in loyalty, in oaths, in honor. But Tywin Lannister's death changed the rules. The game wasn't about truth anymore. It was about survival. So when word came that Kevan Lannister had taken Riverrun and executed Edmure Tully, the North snapped. Robb stood in the Godswood, fists clenched. He was family. "They all are," Ned said, voice barely above a whisper. "That's the curse." Robb turned. "Then let's curse them back." "Not yet." "But—" "Not yet," Ned growled. And that moment? That was the first time Robb ever questioned his father's strength. Meanwhile, back in King's Landing, Joffrey crowned himself Protector Eternal of the Realm. He demanded a monument taller than the Sept. He ordered ravens sent to every corner of Westeros, calling Robb Stark a traitor to the Iron Throne and usurper of peace. And in the shadows, Varys returned. "To kill a lion is easy," he told Ned one night. "To rule without lions? That's harder. What do you want?" Ned asked. "A realm that doesn't burn," Varys replied, "though it may already be too late. That's when the black cells opened. Cersei's guards pulled dozens of prisoners out. Some were small folk. Some were knights. One was Gendry, bastard of Robert Baratheon. He has king's blood, Cersei hissed. We'll bleed it for prophecy. But here's where it gets insane. Davos Seaworth smuggled Gendry out. Straight to Dragonstone. Straight to Melisandre, fire met blood. Shadows rose. And suddenly a lion, Kevin Lannister, died in his sleep, choking on black smoke no one else could see. Stannis, they whispered. Witchcraft, Cersei spat. Justice, said Melisandre. Okay, stop right there. Are you keeping up? Because we've got Stark wolves hunting in the Riverlands. Joffrey going full Mad King, Theon back in the north, and now Stannis playing with shadows. But wait, it gets even darker, because Robb's next decision, it splits the north in two. After a decisive skirmish at Fairmarket, Robb declares open war against the Iron Throne. No more letters. No more diplomacy. He names himself king in the north, but here's the twist. He does it without his father's blessing. Ned, still in King's Landing, hears the news from a raven. His hands shake. His breath catches. He's crowned himself. He asks Catelyn. She nods. He waited. You didn't answer. And just like that, the Wolfpack fractures. Ned is furious. Not because Robb defied him, but because he knows what it means. Joffrey will strike harder. Renly will wait longer. The North will bleed. But Robb feels free to kill, free to rule, free to make a choice Ned never could, and his first act as king. He sends Theon to Pike to secure the Greyjoys. Catelyn begs him not to. He's not one of us anymore. He is, Robb insists. Or he will be, oh Robb. You sweet summer child. You sweet summer child. Smoke curled into the skies above Winterfell, not the soft, comforting tendrils of hearth fires, but black, choking clouds of destruction. The scent wasn't wood. It was flesh. Burned banners, betrayal. Theon Greyjoy had returned home and sunk his blade into the very heart of the north. Robb Stark, miles away on the march, read the raven's words twice before believing them. Winterfell, taken, it said, by Greyjoy banners. Theon commands. Bran and Rickon missing. He crushed the letter in his hand, veins pulsing. He was my brother. No, Catelyn whispered, her voice hollow. He was our hostage. The tent fell into silence. Only grey wind growled, low and mournful. Okay, take a breath, because everything is about to unravel. Robb had risked everything to trust Theon. He believed blood was thicker than salt. That mistake would cost him more than land. It would cost him the soul of the North. Back in the Iron Islands, Balon Greyjoy laughed. The wolf pup begged for our ships, and got our sword in his gut instead. Theon, burning with desperate pride and wounded pride, declared himself Prince of Winterfell. But not everyone knelt. Maester Luwin warned him. Sir Hodrick cursed him. And the people. They hated him. This isn't your home, one woman spat. You're just another thief in dead men's armor. But Theon clung to his stolen crown like a drowning man to driftwood. Meanwhile, Ned Stark's rage erupted in the Red Keep. He slammed his fist on the council table. He burned my home. Cersei smirked. Perhaps next time don't raise traitors under your roof. You want traitors. Ned snapped. Look in the mirror. Tension crackled like wildfire. Varys leaned in. The realm is not a game board, Lord Stark, but it was. And the wolves were losing. News of Winterfell's fall sent shockwaves through the north. Houses sworn to Winterfell began to hesitate. Karstarks blamed Robb. He trusted the Kraken, they muttered. What other enemies will he invite? Some whispered the word no one dared speak aloud. Secession. Meanwhile, Robb had to act. Fast. He turned his army northward, abandoning his Riverlands campaign. Every mile he rode, the rage boiled hotter. He didn't eat. He barely slept. His council watched him become colder, harder. Mercy is weakness, he muttered one night. Father showed it. And look what it brought. Whoa, Robb's not just changing, he's becoming something else. Something Tywin-like. Hey, wolf with no room left in his heart for honor. But guess who else hears about Winterfell? Joffrey. He orders a tournament to celebrate the traitor's downfall. He forces a bard to write a song mocking Robb's dead brothers, even though Bran and Rickon's fates were still unknown. And when Sansa cries at court, he drags her by the hair and screams, "Your pack is dying, little wolf." Then he whispers something colder. And you'll be the last to watch. But here's where things get interesting. Ned Stark. until now restrained, finally acts. He slips Sansa out of the Red Keep under Varys' nose, sending her on a ship bound north. Arya's already vanished. Bran and Rickon are missing. The Stark children are scattered like ashes in the wind. Ned turns to Sir Barristan. I need loyal blades. The realm doesn't matter if the north falls. Barristan, silent for a moment, finally nods. Then we fight, and just like that, the north rises again. Not just Robb's army. Not just the houses, the people. Old women sharpened blades. Boys lied about their age to ride. The smiths of White Harbour forged steel faster than the snow could fall. They didn't care about crowns anymore. They cared about revenge, because Theon hadn't just burned Winterfell. He hanged Sir Roderick in the courtyard. He hunted 2 boys through the woods and killed the millers, sons just to pretend they were Stark, children. He became the monster he once feared. But even monsters bleed, because in the shadows beyond the wall, something darker stirred. Jon Snow, far to the north, felt it in his bones. When news of Winterfell's fall reached Castle Black, he broke. I should have been there. You swore an oath, Sam reminded him. Jon's voice shook. So did Theon, and that night Jon stood before the Black Gate and whispered, I'm sorry he left his post deserted to go home, to kill Theon. Oh yes, it's about to go down. Back at Winterfell, Theon's grip on power slips like sand through his fingers. His own men mock him. The people spit at him. Maester Luwin begs him to flee. Instead, Theon doubles down. He demands tribute from the small folk. He executes a boy for stealing bread. He stands atop the walls like a king, but sleeps like a hunted animal. And then the flayed men arrive. Ramsay Snow, sent by Roose Bolton to liberate Winterfell in the name of House Stark. Theon, desperate, lets them in. They burn the city, slaughter the Ironborn, capture Theon, flay him, break him, and Winterfell becomes ashes. Robb finally arrives days too late. To smoke, corpses and silence. He kneels in the snow, where his brothers once played, his sword shaking in his hand. It's gone, he whispers. Catelyn touches his shoulder. So rebuild it, but Robb doesn't answer. Because something inside him died that day. Not just hope, mercy. And that's when he makes his next move, one that shocks even the North. He declares Roose Bolton Warden of the North. For avenging Winterfell, Bolton kneels, smiling. And just like that, the trap is set. Snow fell like ashes, soft, silent, deceptive. But beneath that stillness, the North burned with betrayal. Robb Stark stood in the shattered great hall of Winterfell. Nothing remained but charred stone and broken oaths. Bran and Rickon were presumed dead. Theon had vanished, likely flayed or worse. And now, the North was splintering faster than Robb could hold it together. Roose Bolton knelt beside him, quiet and composed. Winterfell must be rebuilt, he said calmly. Stone can rise again. Blood cannot. Robb didn't answer. He trusted Theon. That mistake had cost him a home, 2 brothers, and the loyalty of half the North. And now he was forced to reward Roose, a man with the voice of a whisper and eyes like dead snow. My father would have never made this deal, Robb muttered. Roose looked up, expression unreadable. Your father is gone. And so is Mercy. Okay, pause. Did anyone else just feel that? That cold slither in the spine? Because what happens next isn't just betrayal. It's the slow poisoning of a king from inside his own house. Back in the Dreadfort, Ramsay Snow held Theon Greyjoy in the kennels, not as a prisoner, not even as a hostage, as a thing. He named him Reek, broke him, bone by bone, until the boy who had once called Robb brother now flinched at the sound of his own name. But let's pull back for a second, because while the Boltons were busy, sowing their treachery into Winterfell's ruins, Jon Snow was riding through the Wolfswood. Alone? Every raven he saw made his stomach twist. He wasn't Night's Watch anymore. He was something else. Something the North might kill on sight. But he had one goal: find Theon, kill him. He reached Winterfell's remains 3 days after Robb had departed. The snow was crimson-streaked and soaked into the stones. No one welcomed him, but one man found him, and it changed everything. Tormund Giant's Bane. That's right. The free folk had crossed south of the wall in smaller bands, sensing something unnatural moving in the far north. Shadows that didn't cast in firelight, eyes glowing in the dark. You're the Stark bastard, Tormund said, sniffing. But you smell more wolf than man. Jon raised his blade. You followed me. No, Tormund grinned. I came to fight the things that come for all of us. But maybe I found a better fight. Okay, what now the wildlings are in play? You're damn right they are. Because Mance Rayder had heard of the civil war tearing Westeros apart, and he had plans to use the chaos to his advantage. He wasn't just fleeing the Night King anymore. He was looking to conquer while the South bled itself dry. But let's get back to Robb. He returned to Riverrun with a heart of stone. Not anger, not vengeance, something colder, something deeper. When Lord Karstark defied a direct order during a raid, Robb called for him. The man argued, spat, cursed. Robb didn't blink, he beheaded him himself, no ceremony. No trial, just ice and silence. Well, Robb is gone. This isn't the boy from Winterfell. This is a king made in war and sharpened by betrayal. But that coldness, it has a cost. The Karstarks withdraw their banners. So does House Manderley, suspicious of Bolton's new title, and worse. The Freys begin to whisper. Walder Frey's daughter had been promised a wedding. Robb had broken that vow. And now, with the North fracturing and Lannister gold flooding the Riverlands, you can feel it, can't you? The trap is closing. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Joffrey demands a feast for the news of Theon's execution by Bolton's hand. One wolf dies, another kneels, he sneers. Tyrion, now serving again on the small council, watches the madness grow. My nephew plays at cruelty like it's a child's game, but Cersei... She's planning harder, colder, smarter. She meets privately with Rose Bolton's messenger. No gold exchanges hands, just promises. You give us Robb Stark, she whispers, and the North is yours. Rose accepts, quietly, efficiently. But here's the twist. He doesn't tell Robb, he just smiles in every council meeting. Advises with perfect manners. Offers the right names, the right strategies. And while Robb plans his next campaign, Rose plans a wedding. Back in the North, Jon finally discovers the truth. He captures a Bolton soldier near the ruins of a watchtower. What happened to Theon? He demands. The soldier laughs. Reek? You mean the thing Ramsay peels open like a fruit? You're too late, Stark. Jon feels his knuckles bleed from how hard he grips Longclaw. Where is he? Dreadfoot. And that's the moment Jon's mission changes from vengeance to rescue. Because say what you will about Theon Greyjoy, a traitor, coward, liar, he's still a Stark in the end, at least in Jon's eyes. Okay, deep breath. Because you're not ready for what comes next. Robb finally receives a message from the twins. Lord Walder Frey forgives him. Extends an invitation. A wedding. Edmure. Tully to Roslyn Frey. A chance to heal the wounds. Reforge alliances. Catelyn reads the letter, pale. It's too easy, she whispers. He never forgets a slight. Robb, tired, weary, distant, simply says, We need allies. We have no choice. Catelyn grabs his arm. There's always a choice. You taught me that. But Robb, he's already gone. Not dead, not broken. Just numb, and so they march toward the twins, toward a feast, toward betrayal. And far to the east, across the sea, Daenerys Targaryen dreams of wolves in the snow. She sees a crown of ice shatter, a lion fall, and dragons soaring over blackened fields. The time is coming, she says. But for Westeros, time has already run out. It was raining at the twins, not heavy, just enough to blur the sky, turn the ground to mud, and soak through the banners of House Frey and House Tully flapping above the gatehouse. Robb Stark rode in beneath those banners, flanked by his dwindling northern host. His direwolf, Grey Wind, paced restlessly outside the gates, not allowed entry. That was mistake number one. The feast hall burned bright with torches and false laughter. Walder Frey greeted them with a smile as dry and twisted as old parchment. King in the North, he rasped. My halls are honored, Robb bowed. Catelyn said nothing. Her eyes swept the room. The guards, the exits, the positioning of crossbows mounted just above the drapes. Everything felt wrong, but they needed allies. They needed numbers, and Robb? Robb needed a win. Across the realm, the wolves were bleeding. In the Riverlands, Lannister forces had recaptured Harrenhal. In the north, the Boltons were consolidating power in Robb's name, but without his control. And Jon Snow vanished beyond the wall. Robb raised a cup, nodded to Edmure and Roslyn and smiled, but his eyes never met his mother's. She knew. Okay, this is it. The moment. The storm we've seen brewing since part one, but you're not ready for what actually happens. Because this isn't the Red Wedding, you know. Just as the bedding ceremony begins, a scream pierces the hall, not from joy or lust, but pain. Grey wind. Outside the gates, Robb's direwolf is attacked. Bolts fly, steel clashes. Inside, the music halts. Catelyn's eyes widen. Her hand grips the knife on her lap under the table. Walder Frey raises a hand, and everything explodes. Crossbowmen reveal themselves above. Stark soldiers fall before they can rise. Frey men draw swords. Blood splashes wine-stained floors. But here's the twist. Robb survives because Roose Bolton hesitates. He moves toward Robb, blade drawn, already whispering his line, "The Lannisters send their regards." But just before he strikes, Robb turns. He's faster. He plunges a dagger into Roose Bolton's stomach. No hesitation, no mercy, just steel. Whoa, did you catch that? Robb just killed Roose Bolton, the architect of the original Red Wedding. In this timeline? The wolf strikes first. Catelyn throws a knife into the throat of the nearest Frey. Edmure grabs a spear from a dead guard. Hand outside, grey wind breaks free. The direwolf crashes into the gatehouse, tearing through men like parchment. Stark soldiers rally. A breakout begins. Chaos. Walder Frey screams, "Kill them all!" But the Starks are already in motion. Robb grabs his mother, bloodied but alive. "We go now," he shouts. They cut through the carnage. Grey wind clears the main hall. Sir Brynden Blackfish, who never entered the feast, arrives with 50 Riverlands men at arms, hearing the commotion and charging in with fire in their eyes. The Starks escape, but not unscathed. Catelyn is wounded, a bolt in her side. Hundreds of northern men lie dead in the mud. And Robb? Robb doesn't speak on the ride away. He doesn't cry. He doesn't even scream. He just rides. Later, as they camp in the woods miles from the twins, Catelyn lays on a cloak, pale but breathing. Robb kneels beside her. "It's over," he says. "They showed us who they are. And you showed them who you are," she whispers. "Your father's son." But Robb shakes his head. No, he would have died in that hall. And here's the turning point. The moment Robb Stark ceases to be a boy pretending to be king and becomes the king the North fears. He sends a raven to every northern house. Roose Bolton is dead. The Freys are traitors. The king in the north rides for vengeance. He calls on the Umbers, the Glovers, the Manderleys, not for honor, not for justice, for war. Okay, now flip the map. Because in King's Landing, Tywin Lannister receives news of Rose's death. He doesn't react at first, just closes the letter. Then he speaks quietly to Cersei. "The boy survived. That was our chance. And you wasted it." Cersei scoffs. "Then we kill him again." But Tyrion, sitting silently in the corner, mutters, "He's not going to walk into another trap." Joffrey slams his hand on the table. "I want his head. I want his wolf's pelt on my wall." But for the first time in months, Tywin doesn't look confident. "He'll come for us," he says, and this time, not with treaties. Meanwhile, across the narrow sea, Daenerys Targaryen watches dragons circle the blackened skies of Astapor. Her army grows, her legend grows. But when a raven reaches her, black feathers sealed with northern wax, and her interest sharpens. "A Stark?" she asks. "No," Jorah replies. "The Stark, Robb. He lives. And he fights." She looks toward the west. "Then maybe he's worth meeting." "Oh yeah, that's where this is going. Because now we've got a king in the north on the warpath, a Targaryen preparing to sail, a direwolf pack rallying behind vengeance, and one boy, Jon Snow, closing in on the ruins of the Dreadfort where Theon's screams echo in the stone. And remember, the Night King? He's watching, because with the South consumed in war, winter is coming. Winter is coming. Jon Snow arrived at the Dreadfort before dawn. Mist crawled through the trees like ghosts, and the towers rose from the fog like broken teeth. He stood at the edge of the woods, Longclaw at his side, breath misting in the bitter cold. The walls were quiet. No banners flew, but he could feel the stench of death inside. Not just bodies, but souls. Theon Greyjoy was here, somewhere behind those stone walls. The boy who had once called him brother was now a thing called reek, flayed, tortured, shattered. Jon could have turned away. But he didn't. He moved through the trees like a shadow, slipping between broken guard posts and rotted palisades. Ramsay Bolton was dead. The Freys were in chaos. The Dreadfort was barely guarded, a ruin filled with silence and the lingering whispers of what had been done inside. And then he heard it, a voice, broken, whimpering. "I didn't mean to. Please, not again." Jon followed the sound, down into the black belly of the keep, past rusted cells and dried blood, until he found him, Theon naked, bruised, hands like claws, eyes sunken deep. He didn't look up. "Please," he murmured. "I told you. I forgot my name." Jon didn't speak. He just opened the door. Theon flinched, crawling backward like a beaten dog. "No, not today. Not again." "It's me," Jon said softly. Theon froze, looked up, and for the first time in years, recognition flickered in his eyes. "Jon," Jon stepped forward. "I came for you." Silence. "Then why?" Jon stared at him for a long time. "Because Robb would have wanted it." Theon's face twisted in pain. "He shouldn't. I don't deserve it." "You're right," Jon said, voice cold. "You don't. And that moment, that honesty, it hit harder than any blade." "Okay, stop right there. You feel that? That's weight. That's the emotional payoff of 6 parts of betrayal, death, and war. But it's not over, not even close. Jon didn't kill Theon. He helped him stand. He wrapped him in a cloak, gave him water, carried him out inch by inch, and behind them, the Dreadfort burned. Jon had lit the fire himself. The screams, the blood, the bones of innocence buried beneath that place. He gave them something no one else could: peace. When they emerged into the grey light, Theon was silent. "You're not Reek anymore," Jon said. "But you're not a Greyjoy either. Then what am I?" Jon looked at him. "That's for you to earn." Meanwhile, far across Westeros, Arya Stark stepped off a ship at White Harbour. Her face was not her own, but her name burned behind her eyes like wildfire. She had killed men, worn faces, served the many-faced guard, but now she was home. She didn't announce herself. She didn't seek glory. She moved through the streets like a whisper, listening, watching, learning. And what she saw: wolves gathering, Northmen training in every village, children carving the Stark sigil into wooden shields, Robb's name on every tongue. He wasn't just king now, he was legend. The Red Wedding had failed. The Freys were scattered, Rose was dead, and Robb? He was building something no one had seen in centuries, an empire of the North. He didn't answer to the Iron Throne. Didn't seek it, but with every battle won, every bannerman rallied. The South began to fear him. Even Stannis Baratheon, now holding Dragonstone, sent envoys, offering ships, swords. "I am the rightful king," his raven said. Robb replied with only 4 words. "The North remembers, always." And in King's Landing, panic Joffrey's madness grew. He ordered daily floggings, public executions of northern sympathizers. He stripped Tyrion of his titles, accused him of worshipping wolves. Tywin had to step in again, but this time he wasn't met with obedience. Joffrey screamed at him in court, threw a cup at his head. "You're just another old man begging for relevance," he shrieked. Tywin rose, silent, calm, and walked away, because he knew the truth now. The Lannisters weren't winning. They were bleeding. Back in the north, Jon brought Theon to Robb. The reunion was cold, quiet, no embraces, no forgiveness. Robb stood in his war tent, reading maps. When Jon entered, they stared at each other, 2 brothers, now kings in different ways. "I wasn't sure you'd come back," Robb said finally. "I had to." They stood in silence a long while. Then Robb looked past Jon to Theon. "This is what's left of him." Theon knelt, not because he was told, because he was broken. "I have no name," he whispered. Robb looked down at him, cold, unflinching, then nodded once. "Good. Then maybe you can earn one." And just like that, Theon Greyjoy was given a second chance, not as a prince, not as a hostage, but as a man with nothing to lose. Okay, let's pause for a second, because right now we have Jon Snow, Oathbreaker, Brother Saver, Flamebearer, Robb Stark, King, Avenger, Rising Wolf, Arya Stark, Shadow, Assassin, Name-Taker, and Theon Greyjoy, shamed, saved, and now dangerously unchained. But remember Dany, she's coming. She's watching the chaos from across the sea, dragons circling above her like storm clouds. And guess who finally makes contact? Arya. Arya. The girl with no name stood before the queen with 3. Daenerys Targaryen, Stormborn of House Targaryen, stared across the quiet chamber of her ship. narrowed eyes fixed on the hooded figure brought in by Jorah and Grey Worm. She was small, silent, harmless-looking, but the way she moved? Like shadow, like death. Who are you? Dany asked. The girl didn't answer. Jorah stepped forward, hand on his sword. We found her in Lys. She got past 5 unsullied before she let us catch her. Dany raised her hand. Let her speak. The hood fell back and Daenerys gasped. Because Arya Stark didn't wear a mask. She didn't need to. Those eyes told stories. Of wolves and death. Of family lost and vengeance delivered. I've come from the north, Arya said, her voice soft, cold. I've come with a warning. Dany leaned forward. And what should I fear from a girl who brings no army? Arya's face didn't change. You're not the storm, she said. You're the fire. But there's something else coming. Pause. Okay, this is the moment. The old blood, the last Targaryen, and meeting the silent blade of the north. This isn't just diplomacy. This is fate knocking at the door. Arya told her everything. The Night King, the armies of the dead, the fall of the wall, which hadn't happened yet. But Arya said it would. She knew, because she'd seen things, heard whispers from faces that no longer breathed. She didn't need proof. She was the proof. You think your war is for a throne, she told Daenerys, but it's for fire, for life, for everything that still breathes. Daenerys, shaken, looked to Jorah, then back to Arya. Why come to me? Arya's voice dropped to a whisper. Because I've seen the north. I've seen what's coming. And your dragons are the only thing that might stop it. And the north. They'll never follow you. Because I'm a Targaryen? No. Then why? Arya stared at her. Because there's already a king. Cut to Winterfell. Robb Stark stood atop the battlements, looking out at the frozen horizon. Snow fell heavier now. Not the soft flakes of the past, but blizzards. Relentless, hungry. A storm was coming. The maesters had stopped denying it. Birds returned half-frozen. Trees died where they stood. The sun rose later and weaker each day, and then the wall sent a raven. Jon Snow had returned to Castle Black, and he was not alone. Wildlings, thousands of them. Not invading, high fleeing. We saw them, Tormund said. Things that don't bleed, that don't burn, that don't die. Jon stood before the Black brothers, torn between oath and family. I broke my vows, he admitted, but I saw what's coming. And what did you see? Asked Maester Aemon. Jon's voice cracked. The end. Oh my God, you feel that pressure? That tightening? That's the world of men starting to realize they're not the top of the food chain anymore. Robb summoned the banners, but this time, he didn't call them for war against Lannisters or Freys. This was for the living. And to his shock, they came, even the Glovers, even the Umbers, even the Manderleys, who had whispered of secession, now returned to the Stark fold. Not because of love, but because they saw the skies, they felt the cold, and they remembered what the old stories said. Winter isn't just weather, it's death. Meanwhile, in King's Landing, Cersei began to lose control. Her spies whispered of dragonfire, of a girl with silver hair raising an army across the sea, of Jon Snow, risen from exile, now leading wildlings with Robb Stark's blessing. Lies, she hissed. All of it, but Jaime? He wasn't so sure anymore. I fought at the Trident, he said one night. I saw dragons die. I know what they looked like. And the men who followed them. He looked at her, dead in the eyes. Weren't much different than the ones we're seeing now. Joffrey scoffed. Let them come. We'll burn them all, but even Tywin had doubts. This is no longer about kingdoms, he said. This is survival. But the throne? It never listened. Let's go east again. Daenerys stood on the deck of her ship, watching Drogon circle above. Behind her, her army, her advisors, and now Arya. You believe this king of the north will trust me? She asked. No, Arya replied. But I do. And why does that matter? Arya turned. Because I'm going to show you where your dragons are needed. And if you don't come... Everything dies. Dany clenched her jaw, then nodded. Then we sail. You ready? Because all the pieces are moving now. Jon, Robb, Arya, Dany, dragons, wolves, fire and ice. And the wall? It cracks. A sound like the world splitting in two. In the far, far north, a figure on a dead horse raises one pale hand. The wall begins to fall. The wall begins to fall. The wall shattered like glass. Not slowly, not with warning, just a thunderclap. A ripple of blue fire and then gone. Tons of ancient ice collapsed into the abyss below, the sound echoing across the entire north like a death knell. What had stood for 8,000 years was no more, and through the ruins rode Death, the Night King. silent and unflinching atop a decaying horse, led his army through the gap. A sea of corpses stretching to the horizon. Dead giants, wights in Lannister armor, children, women, kings, all reanimated, all loyal only to him, and behind him in the sky above, Viserion, his body still bore the scars of life. But his eyes up, those were ice. And his flames weren't fire anymore, they were frost blue, cold, unstoppable, and now they were headed south. Jon Snow stood atop the battlements of Castle Black, breath sharp in his lungs. "They're coming," he said. "No," Tormund muttered beside him, voice low, "they're already here." Meanwhile in Winterfell, ravens arrived faster than Catelyn's tears could dry, reports of the wall falling. Wildlings retreating, White Walkers cutting through the mountains. Robb Stark read the scrolls one by one, face blank. But inside everything twisted. This wasn't a rebellion. This wasn't war. This was the end. No banners would save them. No thrones would matter. So it was all ash now, or about to be. "Call the banners," he said. "They're already here," said Maester Qyburn, recently defected from King's Landing. "They've seen the skies turn white. They know." Robb stepped into the courtyard. Thousands of Northmen stood armed and waiting. Behind them unsullied Dothraki, and at the center, Daenerys Targaryen. Drogon circled above her like a god of war. Robb and Daenerys locked eyes, and for the first time in 1,000 years, ice and fire stood together. She stepped forward. "Are you him?" "I'm Robb Stark." She looked past him. "And the bastard." Jon stepped forward. "We don't have time for titles, and that was the beginning of the final alliance. Okay, breathe, because from here, it's madness. Winterfell becomes the stronghold for all life. The last stand. Arya scouts the front. Tyrion draws maps of the crypts, calculating defense. Brienne trains young boys too scared to speak. Gendry reforges dragonglass into blades. Samwell Tarly arrives with ancient texts. And in the Godswood, Bran Stark, no longer a boy and no longer just Bran, opens his eyes and says, "He's almost here." The night before the battle, the leaders meet in the war room: Jon, Robb, Dany, Tyrion, Arya, Brienne, Tormund, Grey Worm, Sam, Davos. "The Night King will come for Bran," Sam says. "He wants the memory of the world erased." Arya nods. "Then we bait him." Dany steps forward. "And when he comes, we burn him." "No," Jon says quietly. "Fire didn't kill him last time." Everyone stares. Jon tightens his grip on Longclaw. "I will." Tension builds. The kind you feel in your chest. Like the air before a storm, because tomorrow, they fight death. That night, Robb sits alone in the Godswood. Catelyn approaches, older now, eyes tired. "You did everything right," she whispers. "And it still ends here." Robb's voice shakes. "No, it begins here." She touches his cheek like she did when he was a boy. "If I die tomorrow, let me die as a Stark." "You'll die as my mother," he says. "That's enough." And Arya, she sharpens her blade. Not needle, not the dagger, but something else. Valyrian steel. She doesn't speak, she just remembers names, all of them. Then the horns blow once, twice, 3 times. They're here. The undead army surrounds Winterfell. White fog rolls across the fields. The moon disappears. And in the distance they see him, the Night King atop Viserion. Jon and Dany rise into the skies on Drogon and Rhaegal, fire spiraling in the sky. The battle begins. It's not a war, it's a massacre. Unsullied hold the lines, then fall. Dothraki charge, lights snuffed out like candles. Whites pour through every gap. Climb the walls, tear through the gate. Arya disappears into the shadows. Bran waits in the Godswood. Still, silent. Robb leads a charge of Northmen, grey wind at his side, slashing through waves of the dead. And then, Jon faces the Night King, their swords. Clash. Ice and steel, frost and flame. But the Night King doesn't bleed, he doesn't burn. Smiles and lifts his hands, the dead rise again. Jon is surrounded. Viserion slams into Drogon midair, both beasts roaring. Fire against frost. Daenerys falls wounded, crawling across the ice. A white charges, then collapses. Arya. She pulls Dany to safety. Blade dripping black ichor. "You're not dying here," she snarls. Meanwhile, Bran speaks through ravens, thousands of them. His voice hot inside Jon's head, inside the night. "Kings, you were never meant to win." And that's when Jon understands the Night King doesn't want to kill them. He wants to erase them, everything, every name, every memory, every scar. Jon screams and charges again. Longclaw meets the Night King's spear. They clash again, then Arya leaps from behind. The Night King turns, catches her mid-air, like before, but this time she drops the dagger. Jon catches it, drives it into the Night King's heart. Ice shatters. The Night King explodes into dust. Every wight stops moving. And then, silence, the snow falls again, but this time it's just snow. No screams, no fire, no death, just quiet. Winterfell stands, broken, burning, but alive, later on the walls. Robb watches the horizon. Daenerys joins him. "You're not bending the knee, are you?" she asks. "No," Robb says. "And you're not asking me to." She nods, then smiles. "We'll rebuild." Arya rides off that night. No goodbyes, she has names yet to find. Bran stays in Winterfell to remember, to warn, and Jon leaves through the North Gate. Not to the Wall, not to Castle Black, to the true North, with Ghost, with no crown, no name, just peace. Because some wars never end. But this one? It gave the world one more dawn. The wolves howled, the dragons flew, and for the first time in a long, long time, the realm was free. Long, long time, the realm was free.